Hello everyone, my name is Taj Bhambra. I'm the Managing Director of Alcatel Submarine Networks. I'm here to tell you about probably, in my opinion, one of the most important companies that you've never heard of. We truly have a global reach, and I'm here to tell you why Alcatel should be known as the home of communication. Greenwich should be known as the home of communication, as well as the home of time. We are your silent enabling partner, and I'll explain that to you in a few moments. So I have the pleasure today to share the stage with my colleague Colin, and thank you to the National Maritime Museum and Peter for this opportunity. We would like to go through some of our history at ASN. So our story started with the Enderbys in the 17th century. The Enderby dynasty, 3 generations, and a whaling fleet. It was a very popular industry in the 17th century. And the Enderbys built their dynasty on this. You may know of the Enderby House at the moment that still exists. It's a listed building. It's in the Greenwich Peninsula. And we'll connect to that in a particular moment. So, the Enderbys, 3 generations of Enderbys connected to maritime and the whaling fleet and the whaling industry. From there, they had some acres in Greenwich in which they had some rope-making facilities. If I can just turn the screen quickly. Thank you. So the Enderbys in the 1800s had some rope-making facilities in Greenwich. They were optimised to provide rope for their ships and sails as well. That type of industry lent itself to the technology evolution in the 18th century, telegraph. So there was a strong interest in communications. That strong interest also lent itself to the Greenwich Mean Time that we know and love today. That was all based off telegraph. At some point, the great thinkers decided that we could connect not only city to city from Greenwich, using Greenwich as the mean time, but we could connect country to country. And this is where the legacy of ASN effectively starts. So the Enderbys had this rope-making facility. That technology lent itself completely to making long-form rope and cable. They could armour the cable, which was something that was required to lay on the seabed. So in 1850, the technology was there to test this. And there was a cable run laid between Dover and Calais in 1850, which was the first in the world to connect country to country. And our big connecting piece in terms of our history in ASN, which is why Greenwich should be known as the home of communication, is that in 1858, Alcatel Submarine Networks, based in Greenwich, was responsible in part for making the cable that connected America to the UK. That enabled telecommunications to occur within minutes rather than weeks. Before then, any transaction had to be done through post or in person. But then, all of a sudden, with this particular cable, the communication could happen in 17 minutes. Can you imagine the impact on society that had at that particular time? Not only were we responsible for the first successful transatlantic cable crossing, we were also responsible for the second in 1868, which was laid by the incredible vessel, the Great Eastern. Now, the popularity of communications and the impact that that made on society, can you just imagine the impact that that had? 17 minutes to make a communication between 3-4 weeks. The demand grew for our services, for our cables, and you can see there that we have a very dense site. Is a picture of the Greenwich site at the moment, and you can see ring-fenced right there, it's circled in red, is Enderby House, and that still stands today. Still there, it's listed, and if you walk along the Greenwich pathway you can find it. And also you can see the jetty there, just a little zoom in. That jetty is still in existence. In fact, at the moment we have a cable run there just as a nod to our strong past. Communications continued on, the popularity. In fact, Telcon was responsible for a number of innovations, not only in the subsea communication field, but also in terms of making particular metal alloys and their technology. You can see the site was evolving over time. And in the 60s, you can see the entrance here, which is completely different to the entrance you see today. This is, in fact, Christchurch Way. The historic entrance to the Alcatel Submarine Network site, incredibly popular. 16-acre site, probably has something like 2,400 people working there in its height. You can see the footprint of our site, Telcon, in terms of the 1940s, 50s view there, and how we are today. We still retain our site, and that is what we are very proud of in terms of our history. Not only do we connect with industry firsts and some incredible moments in time, the first successful transatlantic crossing, the Great Eastern, but we are still based in Greenwich. And we are proud of being based in Greenwich as well. Just to bring it back to the Enderbys, Alcatel have particular products. We lay cables under the sea, submerged networks, submerged optic fibre networks that connect country to country. In fact, your modern digital connected reality and lives are underpinned by our technology. If you send a text, if you download a document, if you watch a TV program, or do anything, in fact, if you're connected to the internet anywhere in the world, there is an absolute high probability that you're using equipment that has been made here in Greenwich and made by Alcatel. It's just you don't know about it. We're the silent enabling partner for those industries and those companies that enable your digital connected life today. And to bring it back to Enderby and the whales, we have developed technology that can actually detect whale song. So we have sound recordings of whale song, which I think is just an incredibly powerful piece that we connect back to the whaling industry, but now we are working in a space in terms of our sustainability and environmental impact where we can detect whale song. To move forward to tell you exactly a little bit more about who we are and what we do. We are the world's leader in this type of technology in terms of turnkey submarine systems. We have laid over 750,000 kilometres of cable across the globe. That's enough to circumnavigate the globe 19 to 20 times. We have roughly 330,000 kilometres of cable under our supervision and maintenance. We have a number of vessels. My colleague Colin will go through that in more detail. We have over 2,000 people working for us globally, and we've been in existence for over 160 years. Just a view of some of our customers. They trust us. They come to us. And in fact, as I said before, your digital connected lives are enabled by us. You can see some popular names there in terms of Meta, Google, Orange. Just to give you an overview, some context. I've been talking a lot about submarine systems, but what actually is it? And it is as simple as a cable running on the ocean bed, seabed. Optical fibre cable that's protected and qualified to lay at a depth of 8,000 metres. We have the capability to do route studies, to manufacture the product, the cable and what we call the optical amplifiers in Greenwich, then also to lay them and maintain them. So what we do is we act from the point of presence, the POP to the POP, the landing station to landing station. So we take care of the power feeding equipment to power the system, the submerged line terminal equipment, SLTE is what we call it, in terms of transposing that terrestrial data into submerged data for transmission. The cable and then the repeaters. These systems are also designed to have a working life of 25 years, and in terms of a data pipe, it's incredibly sustainable and environmentally friendly. As soon as they're laid, generally they stay there for 25 years and have a working life. And even after 25 years, we know of some systems that are still in use. When they're laid, they generally stay there. There is some movement towards bringing them up and recycling them, but generally once they're laid, they're fine. In order to enable this, we have a fleet of 7 ships. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but our fleet is probably one of the, in the top 3 in terms of age in the world. We invest in new technologies, we invest in new ships, we invest in trying to make them more environmentally friendly so we reduce the impact of our operations. And if you can think about having 7 vessels mobilized globally, we have to think about that impact. We have a partnership with a company called LDA who take care of that for us in terms of manning and deployment and so on and so forth. But those 7 ships are under our control. In fact, our demand is so high at the moment, not only do we have high utilisation for our 7 ships, we actually charter others. I think we have something like 14 at the moment. We have some equipment for those ships that we're working on in terms of improving. That's remote operating vehicles. Some simultaneous lay and burial equipment as well, which makes our operations very, very efficient. And that's what we do. We connect people and we connect the world. And we try to do that in a sustainable way for the environment to limit its impact. And if you think about something that I said earlier, in terms of a working life of 25 years for our equipment, in terms of a data pipe, I think it's incredible. The technology that we have is inspiring. So at that point, I'd like to pause and hand you over to my colleague, Colin.
Thank you, Taj. So Taj has spoken about our history. At that point, has explained its telegraph cable, now fibre optics. Fibre optics is obviously a very small fibre, size of human hair. I have a sample here of our deep sea cable. So we're talking a very small footprint. And when we look at the environment, this is what we're considering deep sea, maybe twice that size when we're getting inshore and we're protecting the cable. So my presentation is about connecting the world in a more responsible and sustainable way. So Taj has spoken about ASN's known history and our legacy of being pioneers. Our engineers today continue with that innovation for today and tomorrow. I should talk about their approach, the general approach in ASN in terms of managing our impact on the environment. So we have a vision. This is about ensuring our customers think of us in terms of trusting us as being enablers, thinking ahead, developing and implementing products in a sustainable and responsible way. We provide all the elements of a turnkey submarine system, tailored then to our customers' needs. In terms of our markets, our networks can be considered as key national infrastructure. It's vital to modern day banking, commerce, education, entertainment, and society in general. It also forms the backbone for the data centres that power the World Wide Web. And as the world continues to connect and demand more bandwidth, that market grows and our market evolves. So we talk about telecoms being our traditional market. We have digital services that we provide. We've entered into oil and gas markets, increasingly so recently, and fibre sensing. And that's where Taj mentioned about monitoring the whale song. Our cables now are not just for the transmission of that data between continents, but for many other applications, which I'll come on to, and it has an implication for the environment. This is a little slide on our track record. So as Taj mentioned, we've installed a cable that's equivalent of circumnavigating the globe 19 times or more. One project I'd like to call out from this slide is the To Africa system. So on that system, the world's largest, which we're currently installing, 45,000 kilometres and an astonishing 46 landings. Where in the past, that would be the number of landings we might install in a year. As well as major continents, we're also connecting to some very remote archipelagos. So crossing oceans, connecting continents and remote islands. And this is a picture taken from one of our projects, the Quintillion project up in Alaska, for which we communicated with the local community leaders. We're working in some very remote coastal communities, and that was very key to us to establish that relationship to ensure the success of the project. Taj mentioned the silent enabler. So apart from perhaps the ceremony that we have on occasion when landing a cable, you saw a picture earlier of a cable being floated, a big vessel out at sea, boys floating the cable through. We invariably get our local dignitaries, politicians, the company hosting that landing, and can be a big event. But beyond that, our cable's quite hidden. You can see from the footprint. It's also need to take into consideration, in terms of the environmental impact, the size of the cable. Telecoms cables are very small compared to power cables. They're both chemically inert and physically stable. The impact on the substrata is very small as well. We can also route to optimise that. And in terms of electromagnetic field, from telecoms cables also considered negligible. So a greener future. One of to dive a little bit deeper in terms of the world of subsea connectivity. How we can change the way we do things to reduce our impact on the environment, and what we can do to be part of the solution. So here we have ASN's commitment. It's a green charter with 4 elements. We see this as steering our journey in terms of demonstrating also our commitment to the environmental concerns. It includes the fact that we have ISO 14001 certification on our sites. We're looking at CO2 reduction, as everyone is, but also waste management and all our activities, not just the marine element, but also back in the factory and every stage through our project implementation. The next few slides, I'll talk a bit more about what's mentioned on the left-hand side here, and it's the investments in our fleets, but also the innovations designed to help reduce that environmental impact. So initiatives in our fleet have been focused on better management, recording, improving that environmental impact. We've recently rejuvenated the fleet with 3 replacement vessels, smaller vessels, performing the same activity, and obviously there we've reduced the impact and reduction of fuel. All of our subsea equipment now work with environmentally acceptable lubricants. We're working on shore power as well for our vessels. So when we're loading those cables onto the vessels, that shore power will reduce our CO2, NOx, SOx emissions, and also noise. Another initiative is routing our ships with the aid of artificial intelligence, which we've seen has given us significant, or can be seen as marginal, but for us significant gains. And lastly, we offer clean cable installation, where our vessels are all equipped to work on biofuels. Our product which enabled that whale song to be collected was the distributed acoustic sensing. This is a sensing within the cable. The fibre in the cable is sensing movements. That has various applications. We can boost that as well with equipment in the terminal station, but it's limited by range. So I won't mention too much on this slide. That can be combined with our DCFO cable, direct current fibre optic, where we're providing communications and power to oil and gas platforms. It's also been used recently with the oil and gas companies for their carbon capture storage. But I'm going to talk a bit more about what we're terming our CC nodes, climate change nodes. Smart cable. Smart being scientific monitoring and reliable telecommunications. So here we integrate into our subsea product sensors, all along the telecoms cable. And this is the next generation of submarine networks set to revolutionise the industry. It will offer a unique opportunity to address some of the most pressing global challenges. We have dedicated sensors, seismometry, accelerometry, positioning, temperature, pressure. And they can aid to provide early warning signals, to save lives, to minimise that impact from environmental and natural disasters. The beauty of the cable is that we have worldwide coverage. We can talk about real-time data and collection, data monitoring and collection, which enables scientists and researchers to study and understand the changes happening on the oceans. To enable this, we've established partnerships with test facilities that can look at that data as it's received, process it for the scientific needs. It's quite distinct from our historical telecoms applications. We're proud to say that we're the first company to join Ocean's Decade Corporate Data Group. And this is targeted with being to develop the framework for privately collected data, bathymetry, other survey data, to be made available publicly for the benefit of the oceans and the planet's health. For this climate change node and smart market, in January, ASN, a company named Primer, announced the world's first submarine cable, connecting Vanuatu and New Caledonia. It will be. This will be digital connectivity and seismic monitoring will substantially enhance the safety, connectivity and seismic insight in the Pacific region. And for us, this project symbolises the strength of international collaboration in addressing global challenges. This is my penultimate slide. So here we talk about undersea Wi-Fi. Also at the start of this year, ASN announced groundbreaking partnership with WSense for the next generation of Wi-Fi connected to the internet backbone. Aimed at revolutionising underwater exploration, real-time data collection, contributing significantly to understanding the world's oceans, while fully respecting the maritime ecosystem. What we have here is we're emitting much lower acoustic power than you would have from vessel-mounted devices. And again, it facilitates remote monitoring, noise, quality of water, seismic activity, etc. And it will play a crucial role in the disaster prediction, early detection, alien surveillance, naval operations for coastal securities. So lastly, collaboration is key. We found that in our journey. Key to securing that sustainable blue future. Thinking green, we've realised there's no such thing as a small initiative. It's the combination of all initiatives that is precipitating in making that culture change. And I'll conclude with some words from our CEO, who has said, from now on, tackling climate change is an intrinsic part of our strategy and will drive our decisions. This approach will also be the catalyst for innovation and investment in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. And Taj, could I please invite you to come and join me? I mean, how fabulous to be here at the University of Greenwich, the home of so much, but particularly ASN and what you're achieving there. Before I go to the audience, I have a question. As a silent enabling partner, how on earth do you attract new entrants to the sector? And that's a two-part question, because once you've got them there, what are the challenges for developing their skills and retaining them in our wonderful sector?
We find it problematic, if I'm honest. The challenges that we face in terms of attracting talent, not just attracting talent, but it's attracting talent with the right skills that we need. We're unique, but we're also like any other business. So we need to get our visibility out there, increase that, and also inspire younger people in the younger generation to take a career with us, or to actually study topics and modules that will enable them to be more sustainable, and also in terms of engineering, in terms of maritime, come and work with us. Because we have an incredible global reach, we have an incredible need for that type of talent and skills. And we're finding it very, very difficult. If I can say, it's not an industry that people will necessarily think about going into during their working or education life when they're young. So it's very difficult to try and pivot people into this. It needs to be built, and people need to be inspired in their teams.
To enable that, we've been recently going out, improving those connections in the local community and wider, to showcase what we do and to attract that new blood, new generation.
I wonder if there's almost scope for renaming the cloud to the cave, because 97% of all data, as you know, is travelling through subsea cables. And I know before I learned that statistic very much, I thought the cloud was up there. So perhaps it's something very simple like that. Just going to check if there are any audience questions before I continue. So I mentioned that through the themes of our conference, and thank you for opening it so brilliantly this morning, we are calling on our leading experts and organisations to help us start to form the Society in the Sea, SOCSEA Charter. And I'm particularly interested in what difference that will make, or how that will support institutions to bring those principles into their own businesses, and how that works through. So you've mentioned that challenge in not just attracting talent and those skills, but raising awareness. And I know this even as a former primary practitioner, that really communities are not as connected to the sea, or not as aware as perhaps they were as I was growing up. So have you got any suggestions for promoting that empathy with the sea, or increasing awareness of the role it plays?
You saw from the slides that unfortunately we've lost our connection to the sea as well. Yeah? So in the past we were loading cables in Greenwich. Yeah? Our footprint is smaller, more efficient arguably, but yeah, our presence is there. Back from the sea, from the River Thames now, but we still retain the jetty. We have the connections, as Taj says, with Enderby House. We're working with Visit Greenwich to promote the historical connection, and at the same time we can relay the future message as well.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, in terms of a charter, we have this opportunity today through SOCSEA in terms of having companies that are working in the same space. We're all going through this sustainability journey, and sometimes we're doing it in parallel, in isolation as well. So we're looking at how we can make those impacts. And in fact, if the charter does anything but bring us together, we can accelerate that change. We can look at opportunities and how we can work together collectively in terms of accelerating implementation. And I think that's a real opportunity.
I absolutely concur. I've been really inspired by the people that I've met so far at Society in the Sea, and that opportunity to feel the energy that bringing us together is much more purposeful than each of us acting in isolation. It's been a real pleasure to hear more about ASN today. We wish you continued success through your Green Charter and the work that you're doing to make our industry more sustainable, closer to net zero, striving to move beyond that with innovation and technology. So I hope the audience will join me just in thanking you once more.
Thank you.